right, welcome back to another episode of Light Skin Pod, number 43. And just continuing to roll and having fun with it. And today, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks. My name's Tony Cuneo.
Yeah, good to meet you. Well, not good to meet you, but good to have you on.
Yeah, pleasure, thanks.
Appreciate you being on with us. And like always, let's start with Baby Tony.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not too much to tell. I grew up in Apple Valley, Minnesota, just south of St. Paul.
Okay.
Came here in '96 and sort of fell in love with Duluth. Actually, when I was 8 years old, my parents tell me we were heading somewhere up the shore, driving through Duluth, and I vowed then that I would live in this city someday. And I didn't remember that, but I just fell in love with it, I guess, as we were going through, and then came for college and never left.
Okay. You went to UMD?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know much about Apple Valley, but is it a big city or a big town?
I mean, I think when we moved there, it was not. I mean, I think my family moved there when I was 6 months old.
Yep.
But it's kind of big now, 40-something thousand people, maybe 50-something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like all the suburbs in the cities have slowly grown over the last 30 years.
Yeah, they're kind of getting huge.
Yeah.
Like all these little towns that I grew up in thinking it's just a small city, and now like catching Duluth in population.
Yeah. Yep. So, siblings growing up?
Yep, one younger sister.
Okay.
Just a couple of years younger. Yeah.
So, what was your what was it like growing up at Apple Valley?
I mean, it was great. I had friends. I think kind of a traditional family. Every family's got its challenges for sure, and we had ours absolutely. But my dad was an entrepreneur. My mom was sort of an artist, so like kind of when I was just a baby, my dad started an advertising agency, and so as I grew up, he was growing his business. So. Sort of got a first-hand look of what it's like to grow a business and dedicate your life to growing something. And that continued to do better the older I got. And I think it sort of sparked like an interest in sort of an entrepreneurial approach to life. But to have a mom who more on the artistic side and sort of more on the community side was a nice mix.
For sure.
Yeah. And my parents were always great about letting me be whoever I was. I think that was maybe their greatest gift to me as a kid. Very little judgment about whatever I was interested in. That was cool. Follow it. Be yourself. And they just... So, I think that's probably like a philosophy or an approach I've tried to take into my life. Yeah.
For sure. So after high school, you came up to UMD. What did you study at UMD here?
Yeah, I came up to UMD not having any idea what I wanted to do, but sort of fell into a psychology degree. Okay. It was interesting, a little bit of science, a little bit of sort of social aspects. And maybe had some people in my life then and growing up that had dealt with some emotional struggles and mental health issues, and so it was personal to me as well. So it had some meaning. I think I figured out after a couple of years of school I probably was not going to pursue a career in psychology, but since I had no idea what I was going to do, it was as good as anything to wrap up, And I always found it interesting. So
when I did a second major at UMD, my psychology teacher was a retired CIA agent.
Ooh.
It was best class I ever took. Yeah. One of anyway, but she got to tell us like a lot of things that were finally declassified. So we would just have like class days where we just go in these rabbit holes. And just learned so many things from her. But she was a profiler, and she spent a lot of time just overseas and would profile these high-value targets. And it was insane just kind of hear her stories. Wow. And I wish I remember her name. But one thing I remember out of she had red hair, and it reminded me of like a L'Oreal commercial or a Pantene. It was the most perfect hair I've ever seen. I don't know what it was she put in her hair, but we always... we used to give her shit and tell her, like, dude, your hair is perfect every day. Yeah. But,
That's cool.
Yeah.
And it's fun when you see what you're learning, like, put into action. It makes it relevant, especially as a college kid. You know what the real world is like. And so when you can, that's neat.
So after UMD, what was your plans? What was your first job after UMD?
Well, I mean, obviously I had a ton of jobs growing up. I think maybe the first job that sort of set me on my path, though, a friend asked me if I wanted to go to this conference. It's called Citizens in Action.
Okay.
And it was sort of a conference about how you get involved in civic engagement and sort of how you plug into that kind of work. And it was like a light bulb went off. I had no idea that you could do that. I'd sort of done some of that stuff in college and, was interested in different issues and was beginning to fall in love with Duluth as a city and like how I might interact with it. But it never occurred to me that could be a career.
Okay.
And so at that conference, hearing from people, who were finding different ways to get engaged civically and turn that into what they did professionally, sort of blew my mind. And so started applying for jobs and got a job for an organization that was called Minnesota Public Interest Research Group, or MPIRG. It was sort of like a campus, students on campus ran the organization, but then they would hire sort of professional leaders to help advance their issues. So it was, like economic issues, environmental issues, really whatever students wanted to work on. As the sort of staff, it was my job to like get them the right trainings, show them how to plug in and be effective in whatever they were trying to engage in.
Okay.
And was this on the UMD campus?
Yeah, it was all on UMD.
And were you employed through UMD for that?
I was employed by MPIRG, the organization.
Okay.
And it was a cool organization. It was a statewide organization. And so I just thought it was the neatest way for college kids to sort of learn how to like run an organization like this. And so you would elect from each campus where there was a chapter, you would elect a couple of board members. And so then they would go, they would have board meetings all around the state at the different chapters. But they would run the whole organization, and then you would elect sort of on-campus leadership. And so kids got to practice, like, what is it like to go to a board meeting and hold staff accountable and set budgets and figure out how you're going to raise money and do that, like, multi-year strategic planning. And then the on-campus leaders were usually a little bit more, like, into the specific issues that campus chapter was choosing to work on. But same thing, they had to sort of figure out how to recruit students to their organization and how to engage the administration or bring other students out into the community to work on issues. And so that was great. So that was kind of my first gig.
Yeah. Now, how long did you do that for?
A couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, I did that for a couple of years. Then worked for some like sort of nonpartisan voter engagement efforts. And at the same time was starting an investment property business with a friend. Okay. And that was cool. I liked the entrepreneurial aspect of starting a business. But
and your dad did it.
So yeah, that's true. Yep. But after a couple of years, like every time somebody would come and sort of like say, "Hey, would you be interested in running this voter engagement?" I always said yes. And one day it occurred to me, like, if this is what I'm always saying yes to, it's probably what I should would be. I'm probably not being fair to my friend and my partner. And, asking him to sort of take it on every time I go do this other project. And so, kind of decided just to focus on that side of my life. And,
Yep. So, what year are we in right now in your life when we go through that?
I'm probably like 24, 25.
All right. So, I'll jump ahead a little bit, but then go back. So you mentioned that you ran for city council. So what got you interested in kind of wanting to get involved in politics that way? Was it kind of that kind of voter engagement stuff and the things you did with the students with the on-campus job? Well, MPIRG, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, I had run a couple of those like engagement efforts during a presidential election and then during a gubernatorial election.
Which presidential election was it?
Bush Kerry.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, you know, sort of like knew other people that were working in that space. I don't know. I don't know if it was like kicking around. I actually, I think part of it was I was back at so after I went to that first Citizens in Action conference, I like to go back each year.
Yep.
Sometimes it'd help like lead a session or whatever. I think I was sitting in a session, and honestly, somebody in the like little circle, I don't think I was leading this one, I was just participating in it. Somebody in the circle described like an incidence of racism that they had experienced, and sort of talked about it like over the course of a number of weeks or something. And I just felt like, that's not, it's not a good representation of our city, or it shouldn't be. And I don't know why I connected that to the idea of like running for city council, but some idea of like how I don't want that to be the identity or the character of our community. And so if I want to be a part of shaping the identity of our community, then this would be a way of doing that kind of thing. And so how do you build an inclusive community? I was interested in exploring how you could do that from a city council perspective.
For sure. And how did that go being on city council? How did some of those efforts transfer into just community and stuff for you personally?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Once you start running and you get into it, then it's kind of like you get subsumed by it, and not in a bad way. It's just, you know, I ran at large, which means you got to start to learn the issues and the interests of the entire city, and it was awesome. Like I actually really loved it. I learned a ton. You know, I learned, you know, found little corners of the city that I'd never been to. Met people from east to west, and then I won. And so then you start. In those first 2 years, like every meeting I went to, I was like nervous. I felt behind because you're being asked to make decisions on issues that have been percolating for sometimes decades. And you get a packet from the city on a Thursday, and it's nothing that anyone's doing wrong. It's just, it takes a long time to learn the whole history of these issues and feel like you're coming in prepared to actually like make a yes or no vote. You know, when everything in the world is great, but all you get to do is say, you know, yay or nay. So, but again, I really liked it. And then over time, I think I sort of got to kind of find my voice, like in how you do that work. And for me, I think I'm more of a behind the scenes kind of person. Like I think I had a good relationship with most of my colleagues, and I tried to have a good relationship, even colleagues who like probably politically see the world differently than I did. You know, for me, my first thing was like connect with people who are doing it for the right reasons. Even if you don't see the world the same way, like that's okay. I don't need everyone to agree with me, and I don't need to agree with everybody. But if I feel like they're in it for the right reasons, then we can probably find a compromise. We can probably find ways of working together. And most people were like that locally, and most people I worked with on the council and in the administration, you know, I thought were mostly there for the right reasons, and so that turned out to be really fun and really rewarding. Yeah,
a lot of times when you do get to have conversations, because if you look at things big picture, it's, you know, people get so caught up in just left or right or this issue versus that, but when you get to sit down and have one-on-ones with people, you realize we really ain't as different as the world portrays it to be. You know. And there's a lot, like you said, we can find common ground on that's best for the people that we're serving. You know, and we take our selfish needs or our own comfortabilities out of it. You know, we figure out like, we can do a lot of good in this world. So,
I mean, hopefully it's a lesson we can learn. I mean, I actually think Duluth usually does a pretty good job of that. But the bigger the systems get, the harder that becomes.
For sure. So after city council, what's next? Where you at?
Well, just out of curiosity, did you run for a second term? And why not?
When I was running for the first term, I didn't have any kids, and my job was relatively easy. Actually, I was, by the time I was like 2 years in, my job had gotten really, really hard, and I had 2 kids.
Yeah.
And, I tried to be a counselor that responded to every email, that I got. And if I was asked to come to a community meeting, I wanted to do everything I could to go there. And when you got a 2-year-old and a baby at home, and my job had just gotten really, really tough. And so I just couldn't do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, if it paid the bills, I might have done it. But it doesn't pay the bills.
No.
Yeah. All right. So what was next after city council?
I started working at Zeitgeist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how did that come about? How did Zeitgeist open up for you?
Actually, I just won the election, so it was like late November.
Okay.
And somebody invited me to. At Zeitgeist, it was. I think the building used to be a county health building, but it was basically gutted and sort of rebuilt to be Zeitgeist. And then the Red Lion was where the restaurant is. And now they're sort of merged into one building. At the time, they were 2 separate buildings.
Okay.
I remember the Red Line.
The Red Line was
before
sweet.
your time.
Yeah, I hear people talking about it, but it was before I got
We still
here.
got the door. It's like this bright red door with the lion painted in the middle. And someday we're going to find the perfect place for it, and it'll just live on in the building.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's funny.
So I got invited to, the first thing that was done in the building was the performance theater, before the rest of the building was gutted and finished. And so I got invited to an opening party, and just got talking with a guy named Alan Zeppa, who sort of started it all. And I think at some point Alan said I've had a little bit to drink tonight. Why don't you come back on Monday and we can chat a little bit, chat a little better. He's like, yeah, cool. Seemed like an interesting guy to get to know, so thought I'd go back on Monday. And about halfway through that Monday conversation, I was like, this feels like a job interview. This is kind of weird. And then at the end, he's like, hey, well, this was sort of a pre-job interview. Would you want to come back next week and meet with a few other people?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sounds awesome. So the rest is history.
Yeah. Now, was the first position you stepped in there for executive director of Zeitgeist? Okay.
No, actually, it used to be a foundation.
Okay.
And so my first position was sort of like a program officer, the guy who kind of looked at applications and helped figure out where to distribute funds. And that's what I did for the first couple of years, probably the first year and a half.
Okay.
So when I say when I started, my job was sort of manageable. So it was in January of 2008 where I had my first kid, started at Zeitgeist, and started on city council all day long.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So it was an overwhelming month. But again, it was good, and I could kind of manage it all. But the economic downturn of 2008, plus some other things, had a really big impact on the organization.
Yeah.
And but that happened in late 2008, and sort of the full ramifications kind of came out over 2009 and into 2010. And so that's where the job was all the assumptions we had about how this organization was going to operate going into the future are all out the window.
Yeah.
And we had to transition basically from being a foundation that gave money to other nonprofits. We ultimately transitioned into a nonprofit, and now I'm the one writing grant applications and submitting them out to other foundations.
Yeah.
And so you guys, did you give loans, or was it just funding for projects? And then what were those, what did you give to?
Yeah. Without going too far into all the history of it, and I say that just because today people are still sort of confused sometimes about what was Zeppa and what was Zeitgeist, or what is their relationship. And so, I'd love to just make it clear, we are a nonprofit organization now, like any other nonprofit, and there were sort of a series of various Zeppa trusts, and so some of them did make loans to just like community organizations, helped get the Clyde project off the ground, helped with the co-op. but between those entities, sometimes made grants, sometimes made loans, and so I mean, there are really cool projects around town that wouldn't exist, and probably some nonprofits that were going through a really hard time in 08 and 09, without naming names, that probably wouldn't have survived if not for sort of Alan's generosity in starting that organization here locally, and so that was some of what attracted me to the organization. Was this cool mix of like thinking about the community but also investing in the arts, and running a restaurant and a movie theaters and a performance space and art gallery. Like, it felt entrepreneurial to me in this way that I'd sort of grown up and was interested in, but also was there like explicitly for the benefit of the community and as a gift to the community, and to be a place that the community could engage with and use to tell its stories and define its our community culture and identity. So all that really resonated with me.
So what does Zeitgeist mean? Where does that word come from?
It's a German word.
All right.
It means spirit of the times.
Okay.
Or like spirit of the moment, or the essence of the moment. So
because you always hear that word.
Always.
People are like, well, now you're in the zeitgeist.
Remind me of poltergeist.
Well, I mean, it is like the idea of a spirit, right? And so, but so, I mean, I think for us, we kind of use that word as like a little bit of a guide of like what it is we're trying to do. So if it's about, the spirit of the times, or like what we say is, all right, who are we as a community, and how do we define that? What is our identity in these times? And so, that's what we're always trying to do, is like, how do we get people into that space, or how do we go to them so they can tell their stories in a way that defines our community as one that includes all of our stories, all of our community's perspectives. And then, you talked about like finding common ground. One of the reasons I love a movie or a play or a piece of art or even like a good meal is like, I might disagree with you on all sorts of things about the world. That movie rocked, and we can talk about that movie and like find some common ground, and now I might be able to build bridges in how we work together on everything else that we do.
And there's a lot of that kind of, the community work is kind of telling the story through art, whether it be film or film is mostly what I know from Zeitgeist. Do they do like art shows with paintings and things like that as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got two galleries. We use our restaurant as a gallery. And then we've got sort of our atrium. It's like kind of like a lobby or community meeting space, and that's an art gallery. And we program each one a little differently. I think the restaurant tends to be kind of like professional or semi-professional artists, and sometimes the atrium is too, but it's also where we do student art shows or community art shows, that kind of thing. We produce a ton of theater. We have our film festival. We teach filmmaking classes. We just play movies every day like any other movie theater.
I was telling you before, we had a kid that went through their film class, and they loved it. I mean, every time we see them, that's one thing they talk about a lot. And Andrea was the one that hooked them up and got them in the class. And they're still doing film now,
That's awesome.
So when we have like different events, we have them come in and do pictures, and they put together, kind of like a cool little promo video, stuff like that. So they enjoy it.
We'll remind him, if he's ever like making movies, that if he's taking classes with us, he can come and check out, we've got like lighting gear and sound gear and movie cameras. He can check out all that stuff for free.
That's dope.
And use it. And then we've got like 12 editing computers, like professional grade editing software that he can come in and use our lab whenever he's mixing a movie.
We're going to go in there. Well, I just want to see it.
Yeah, we need to. Because to be honest, I said, all right, when he comes in, we need to pick his brain on audio. Because we're obviously, I mean, this is our 43rd episode, but we're still finding our way through it in some ways. And like, we want to get our audio set up, and we don't really know how to link it. So, should we be good to go down there?
That'd be fun. That'd be super fun. And your podcast, like, you guys are doing something right. I mean, I think locally you're getting as many listens and views as anybody. So that'd be fun. Like, I know our team would like to work with you. We do a podcast too, actually.
Okay.
We co-produce. Well, we've got something called the Duluth Story Project.
Okay.
So, like that tells stories of all sorts of. At first, it was kind of like COVID related. We were telling people stories during COVID, but now it's sort of gone on. We've got a series of like Hillside Voices and.
I've seen Hillside Voices.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen. Did I get interviewed on that or something? I'm gonna have to look again.
Well, maybe.
I could be wrong, but yeah, I know Hillside Voices.
And we also co-produce this one called Take It With You, which y'all should come out to sometime. It's fun. It's probably the podcast that gets the most listens from us, and it's like statewide. I mean, like thousands of listens.
And what's that about?
It's just like it's like a comedy. Music. It's all originally written each episode, and it's like a cast of recurring characters, and they perform it on the stage, but then record it and then put it out in podcast version.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And so it's a great show.
Yeah.
Like, you should just come see a show sometime.
How often do they do those?
We do like 4 a year.
Okay.
Yeah. And usually it's like in the fall and into the winter.
Okay.
And it's another. We co-produce it with another group, But anyway, I say that just because, like, the people technically putting that together would love to talk with you guys, I think, and talk about your success on this podcast and like how they're doing the audio recording and editing, all that stuff.
Thank you.
I don't know how interesting this is to people, but
hey, they love it. And it's cool because there's so much. I think we're still learning. Like I said, I don't do none of the editing. Joe do all the editing, so I don't know half the stuff he know. So, but I know what our goal is for this. I don't think I ever want to be like worldwide, but throughout all of St. Louis County, and even Douglas County, it's over in Superior, because there's just a lot of just cool stories and people that that about. You heard their name, but you don't know them.
Yeah.
So and with our Taste of Imports, it's fun too because we're going to a lot of places that we might haven't eaten at before. And it's just fun just to highlight these small businesses too, and and now we're starting to hear people say, "Hey, I went to this place because we saw it on the podcast," which is super cool. So we're definitely plugging with you on that for sure. So does Zeitgeist have any new ventures they're going to get into in the future?
Yeah, I think we've been, lots of them. We do work outside the building too, right? Which I think, if you met Andrea, it's sort of more of like our community creative placemaking team. But one of the things we've been doing, I was just working on a grant this morning on expanding some of like the kids camps.
Okay.
So we've done like some pilot, and I think it's something we'd like to lean more into. So filmmaking camps for kids. We were chatting about that the other night.
Yep.
We'll do a theater camp this summer.
Okay.
Yeah. That sort of stuff.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, we do improv camps and improv lessons, that sort of thing. Yeah.
I love improv. I'm pretty good at improv.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So
take a course.
So I used to run these camps in the East Coast, and it was two of the largest youth camps that in the nation actually. And I ran a program team, and we had a thing called Improv Night. So it was only skits, and it was skits that sometimes the kids would choose the topics, and we just have to pick them out of the hat and just run with it. And it was so much fun. It stretched like your comfortability and having to make sure it stayed clean for kids too. And it was a ball. Oh man, it was every Monday was Improv Night.
I'm terrible.
When we were in high school in Duluth, there was an improv downtown somewhere. And it was very popular. Everybody used to go to it. It was on Superior Street. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Dublin's?
No. It was in a theater.
Yeah. It was probably the original crew that we still work with. Maybe it was Renegade.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Renegade Theater, yeah.
And so it's still Renegade. So Renegade's gone through sort of some changes in how it's structured as an organization, and really doesn't exist as an independent organization anymore. But we kind of took the brand, and we brought a lot of those people in to Zeitgeist into our organization, and so we still every Friday night, 10 o'clock, Renegade Improv downtown.
Okay.
We
used to always go to that, and it was so funny. And then, for whatever reason, maybe they fell off a little bit, or I don't know why, but it just seemed like we didn't really hear about it anymore.
Actually, until COVID, I mean, like, it used to be every Friday and Saturday night, and we'd have a line out the door every Friday and Saturday night.
That's cool.
And then COVID sort of killed it, and it's like it's slowly coming back, but that audience was it was high school, college kids, and not just them, but they were sort of a core audience.
Yeah.
And when COVID sort of killed it, that was like something that juniors and seniors in college would pass on to the next crew. So we're sort of rebuilding those relationships now. But,
okay. We'll have to go check it out.
That'll be fun. Yeah, just to see.
But what they do now too, which is cool, is so every Friday improv is great. You should definitely come check it out. But they're actually like writing skit comedy sometimes now as well. So it's a little bit more like Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
It's like and so the show will be a mix of like pre-written skits, and then they'll do an improv deal, and then some more pre-written skits, and then some funny videos that they're produced and that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely gonna check it out. That might be something fun to bring some of our juniors and seniors too in high school as well. They would probably enjoy that. Yeah. We always looking for something new, and plus it's something to just pique their interest. We have kids that are very much wanting to get into videography and theater and things like that. So it would be cool for them to kind of see firsthand kind of what it takes to do some of these things too. So
I'm interested too to hear about the film festival. You do a film festival? What is that?
So it's actually in about it's mid-March, so we're coming up to it.
Okay, we'll make sure to put the information on.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We put out the call for submissions. Every year we've done it. The submissions have grown by like 50 to 100%. So I think this year we had like 450 films submitted, literally from like 27 or 30 different countries all over the world.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so we'll end up picking like 80 to 100 of them. So it's 5 days of movies. We bring filmmakers in. So there's usually like 40 to 60 filmmakers, which I don't know if you've ever been to a movie with the filmmaker there.
No,
it makes it so much more fun. I had no idea. I had never been to a film festival before they started happening in our building. And to go down and watch the movie and then have the filmmaker come up, or sometimes actors from the movie, but whatever, come up and like talk to you about what it was about, what they were trying to say, and you can ask questions about how they shot it, or like, how did you do that scene? That was wild. Is so much fun. I love it so much. And so we're trying to kind of give independent filmmakers a chance to share their work. And then, but what's also really important to us is that we're finding like Northeast Minnesota-Duluth filmmakers, and then connecting them to these independent filmmakers around the world that have sort of figured out how to make a career out of it. So, how do we develop those relationships? How do we feature local filmmakers alongside these international filmmakers? And then I was telling you about the pitch competition, which is kind of cool. So just like we put out the open call for films, we put out an open call for pitches. So a bunch of people send us their ideas for movies they want to make, or movies that maybe they're like they started but haven't had the funds or the resources to finish. And so we pick, we've got categories, right? Like indigenous filmmakers or documentary or narrative film or whatever. And so we'll pick 2 finalists from each of those categories. They come and then they have like 20 minutes to pitch their film, to pitch their project to a panel of professionals, industry professionals. But then also as an audience, you can show up and see these pitches. And then 20 minutes for questions from the panel and the audience about what they're doing. And everybody, if you get selected as a finalist, everybody gets some money.
Got it,
but you get first place, you get more than if you get in the second place. And what's been really fun is we've now been doing it for a few years. So we've had pitch competition winners then finish their project and submit their film, and then we can show their movie a year or 2 later as like
That's
one
cool.
of the premiere movies. And we've had some really great ones that we've helped support. That's been really cool.
That's awesome. That would be cool to kind of see, to listen to a pitch and then just the whole, come back around to now you really got a movie that's That's good. So
yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, y'all doing good stuff over there. I appreciate it. There's a lot I still want to learn about Zeitgeist. And I've been there not many times. I went and watched a movie there, and I don't remember what it was called, but it was good. I've never eaten dinner, but I do go to bingo sometime. Or not bingo, trivia.
Okay.
Every once in a while, I'll go to trivia.
It's been a while since we've done trivia.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been. Yeah. It's probably been sometime last year. And they had a radio station there when I was there. And I got to talk about, I think, what we were doing at NYS. So, yeah. It's a while. Yeah, Zeitgeist.
Cool.
Yeah, we was just in this little top room, and this guy had his little radio thing set up, and I went and talked for like 3 minutes, and then bingo happened. Or trivia happened.
Okay. I bet I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was fun.
We got all sorts of artists doing all sorts of stuff. I don't even always know what's happening in the building. I'll walk through and just see someone doing something awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll ask the question that as we wrap up that I ask everybody. If you can go back and say something to your younger self, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think that you're going to do all right, you know? Like, for the most part, I don't know what I'm doing next in life. And usually I'm okay with that. But there are times where I'm like, man, am I doing this all wrong? And I don't know. Like, hopefully I'm not. And I guess now looking back, like I've got 4 awesome kids. And, you know, I'm got a great job. It's overwhelming sometimes, but I feel, you know, like proud of it and good about it. And that was usually just like trying to follow what felt right at the time. And that's like a fine way to go through life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I hate unknowns myself, but I've learned that just through the years, it's like, as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and doing the right thing, stuff will happen the way it's supposed to play out the right way. So, so that's a good lesson. But thanks again for being on with us.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate hearing your story and hearing about what Zeitgeist does and what they have to offer. And we definitely will come check out a couple of those shows. So,
great.
Yeah.
Good.
And until next time, like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.